there is nothing more powerful than a young person seeing somebody from their cultural background who has done great things, and they can start dreaming about doing the same. So our programs are focused around those two gaps. We close them, and we then leave it to the young people to choose their pathways to success. And I end that bit of the story by sharing one small story. There was a 14-year-old boy who came to our careers conference in Bloomsbury, and he was overheard saying to his mother, "I thought professors were as rare as unicorns, and today I met 4 of them." So hello everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you're looking after yourselves. As you can see, we're doing another episode of the Student Guide, but we're also in a new location, and that's thanks to our amazing guest speaker here today. As you all know, I don't like to introduce guest speakers because I think our guest speakers, as I said, are amazing and get to tell us their amazing stories themselves. So I'm going to hand over to our guest speaker today. Could you please let us know a bit about you and the work that you do?
Jeffrey, thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. Folks may well have seen it in your intro, but my name's Dr. Neil. I am the chairman of Reach Society. Just one or two little tidbits more about me. I always start by telling folks I'm a father of 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and thank goodness they're not costing me any more money now because they're in their mid-30s and they're working and they're doing for themselves. But I'm also happily married, and one of the lucky ones who married his sweetheart from university, and we're still together today. But a little bit about my professional life. After university, I went into Shell International Chemicals and had 21 really good years with Shell International, and it was all on the business side. So, as we were saying off camera, through my time there, I learned how to start businesses, grow them, and so very confident in the whole aspects of business and what it requires. After my 21 years there, I had the bug to have my own business, so I left them and started my own management consultancy, made a lot of money, ran it for 17 years, then retired. So that gives you a little bit about my background. But my labour of love, and it's still my love today, is co-founding Reach Society, which we'll go on to talk about later. So that's the high-level overview about me.
Oh, thank you. And I think it's very important that, it's interesting when we always ask our guest speakers to introduce themselves, the way they introduce themselves, and I think, as you mentioned, the fact that you mentioned your family first before any of the work that you've done shows the importance of family when it comes to whether it's your career journey, your academic journey, the important role that family plays in your life.
Oh, no question at all. For me, family is first, family is second, and family is third. All the other things matter, but if the family wasn't there, if that whole sense of moving together as a unit wasn't there, for me, most of the other things wouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's about being able to not only do for self, but do for family. So yes, absolutely, that's very important to me.
Oh, thank you so much. But yes, we're going to go on to the first question that I've got here. And the first official question that we've got is, you also have your own podcast, the Milestone Podcast, and I'd love to know, what was the inspiration behind it? Where did the idea come from?
The whole idea of Milestones is something that actually started as our milestones. And as you will know, Jeffrey, because you came to our Recognition Awards dinner, this is Reach Society's Recognition Awards dinner last year, I wrote an article about what we as a black community in the UK had contributed and achieved in those 74 years. This year, of course, is the 75th year of the black community, but I was already thinking the milestone year last year. And so it struck me that if I were to just give hits in 10-year segments of what we'd done as a community, it would make for not only interesting reading, but also a solid reminder of what we'd done given our very humble beginnings in 1948. So that was the inspiration behind our milestones. It caught the imagination of Mike Johnson, and he is the founder of Life Radio UK. And he thought this would be a wonderful story to share in podcast. And so we collaborated. It was the same material I'd written, and we serialized it in the podcast. I'm pleased to tell you it's gone down very well, because a number of internet stations have run it and have kept on running it since we produced it, end of last year through to the early part of this year.
Oh, wow, thank you so much. And I think our audience will know that we have these things called Mic Check, where we share interesting facts and stories. And I think, like you said, to look back on your history and to see, like you said, as a community, how far we've come, the amount of amazing work that people have done in a diverse range of fields is so incredible. And to just always remember, I don't remember the original person that said the quote, but I know Winston Churchill said it, but it was a black man that said the quote first, and it was all about the idea of those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. So not even just celebrating successes, but learning from failure to turn those into successes. Those moments where you've tried. I'm sure audience can relate to this. I'm sure you can relate to where you've tried something, it didn't work. You felt like quitting, but like you said, having those support systems, your family, your friends who believe in you, continue to believe in you, and push you to go forward, is so important.
I'm absolutely signed up to what you've just said. And actually, it fits nicely with the saying I've been promoting now for almost 2 years. And that saying is, seek knowledge, because knowledge is power. And if folks were to take time just to understand what that's really saying, the more you understand about a large number of things, the more you're going to be able to make links. And if you make enough links, then invariably you're going to learn from what's been done before you. And I don't just mean what you and folks in your community have done, but what humanity have done. And not just in your country, not just in your backyard, but across the whole world. And by seeking knowledge, you will gain the power to do an awful lot of extraordinary things. If you're allergic to knowledge, don't be surprised if not very much happens for you in life. Because that's where the not making the same mistakes, you learn that and you do different and better things. That's where you see great ideas, and you can see how that great idea can be applied to your particular situation. That's how people move forward. And if anyone is an amateur historian who looks at the various clash of civilizations, going back thousands of years, the earlier civilizations invariably teach the next civilization. They may have been overtaken by military prowess, but there's an awful lot of stuff they've done that's good that the succeeding civilization learns from and uses. And it's continuing right now as we speak.
I think it's so much. And yes, as my brother and I are both very passionate about history, and it's exactly what you said, that you'll see whether it's with the different empires that existed throughout history, whether it's to do with the different ages within history, that sense of continual learning, what did the last century teach us, and what are we going to do to impact the next century? That's always been throughout history, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the future, because that sense of bringing back that knowledge is power, that you need to understand how something works before you can actually, like you said, go out and do it. This is so true.
And you need to understand the mistakes of the past. And if you understand that and you commit not to repeating them, then there's a chance your pathway will be different and hopefully better.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, thank you. We're going to now go on to the next question. And the next question is definitely one that I think is very it's something that I, in the sense of continuing to gain knowledge, is something that I feel was very interesting to me. So public speaking is something that I know for some people they love. For example, myself, I love public speaking. As the audience will know, I did a speech for my graduation, which I was very excited about. But I know for some people, the idea of public speaking is the worst thing ever. They're terrified. The idea of going on a stage, no matter how many people are in the audience, can be quite scary to them. So for anyone who's interested in public speaking, what advice would you give to them if they want to sort of gain that courage or be more comfortable sort of speaking in front of the camera, or speak in front of an audience even? What would you say to them?
I actually think the best advice I can share around public speaking is just to tell the story of my journey into public speaking. As a young person, I think very confident, but when it came to public speaking, it was like the pit. And actually, as I grew through my teens, I realized what I feared most was not having enough of the right information to share should I be in a public speaking situation. So what I learned, notice knowledge is power again, what I learned is that it's important to do your research. It's important to become master of your subject. And provided you've done that, then you're going to be in a position to give a good account of yourself because you're coming from a place of knowledge and information and understanding. And so once that had slotted into place for me, public speaking for me was a joy because I would never go into a situation without doing my research, without knowing the ground that I'm meant to travel. And if that couldn't be sorted, I would decline the invitation. But once I got the opportunity to prepare the ground, I'm comfortable because I know what I should be doing and I know what I can offer. So the fear, I guess, is really realizing that perhaps you don't know enough, you're not prepared well enough, and you don't want to be found out. Just think about that if you want to do public speaking.
Yes, I definitely agree that's true because, like you said, bringing it back to knowledge is power is, I think especially whether it's, like we said, big public speaking, whether it's even just discussing things in your classroom or in your lecture room.
Absolutely.
That's the same thing that students might be hesitant because they don't know all the answers or they feel that they don't want to embarrass themselves. But I think it's, as you said, just being aware that if that's the case and want to get into that area.
Do your research. Prepare yourself. And if you don't want to prepare yourself, don't do public speaking.
Thank you. But yes, we've now come to the question that we hinted at the start, which is obviously, as you mentioned, you co-founded the Reach Society. And we'd love to know a bit more about what is the Reach Society, what is the work that you as an organisation do?
Yeah, always happy to talk about my favourite project. And the reason I'm always happy to talk about Reach Society, my inspiration, along with my co-founders, started with the report that was called the Reach Report in 2007. And that report basically looked at the decades of underachievement, particularly of black boys in the United Kingdom. At age 16, far too big a fraction of our boys do not get good enough GCSEs, or in my day, O-levels. And so more than half will leave school underprepared because they haven't got enough by age 16. And the government watched that for decades. A report was done after a year of research that said, we need to do more to help those boys to develop themselves in order that they can go on to make viable contributions. Perfectly reasonable. The government, however, then did what governments normally do. They make a shambles of the action part. So they announced they were going to fund for 3 years the REACH National Role Model Programme, in which it would have a cohort of professionals, all of them men, to go around the country, inspire young men and young people in general, and also engage with institutions. In other words, to try and bring those two parties together to create a better outcome. That should have been a 3-year project. Unfortunately, it collapsed after a year. And I was so disappointed, but I was also hopping mad, because what I saw was the umpteenth project slated to be there to help the black community to move forward, and it fell flat. So I spoke to my two friends, Rob Neal, Donald Palmer. They were both role models within that program. And I basically asked the question, whose job is it to inspire our young people, not just our boys, but our girls, our young people? And it's because all three of us came to the same answer why Reach Society became a real thing. We all said, it's our responsibility. In other words, the adults in the black community, it was our collective responsibility to inspire all of our young people. And that was the beginning. 6 months of lots of coffee in Starbucks, and we conceived the 3 programs that are at the center of what is Reach Society today. And we started rolling it out in 2010. And we've continued to roll it out. So it was basically disappointment at a government initiative that really didn't deliver very much. And here we are today, 13 plus years later, expanding the work we do. And the real thing I should tell you about it, we are now approaching 40,000 young people that we've impacted in those 13 plus years. And I can tell you how we've done that if you wish.
Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, at the heart of Reach Society are 2 things that we do and we've consistently done. We've closed the gap between young people between the ages of 9 and 24 with firms, employers. And by closing that gap, all of those young people who come to our events will discover the full range of opportunities those firms have to offer. So notice the knowledge path. You show up to an inspiration event of ours, you come away with a lot more understanding about what all those firms, most of which you've heard of but had no idea what they do, have to offer. The other thing we do is we close the gap between those young people and role models in the black community. People like you and me who've done the hard work. We've got ourselves a degree. We've now trained ourselves or become professionally qualified in a variety of areas. And we are now pursuing careers. So you as a young hopeful can see, can speak to us, can ask about our journey, can be inspired about the stepping stones we've taken. There is nothing more powerful than a young person seeing somebody from their cultural background who has done great things, and they can start dreaming about doing the same. So our programs are focused around those 2 gaps. We close them, and we then leave it to the young people to choose their pathways to success. And I end that bit of the story by sharing one small story. There was a 14-year-old boy who came to our careers conference in Bloomsbury, and he was overheard saying to his mother, I thought professors were as rare as unicorns. And today I met 4 of them, and all 4 are from our community. And we thought that was all it was. And then he said, I think I'd like to be a professor. Now for me, that's the proof that what we're doing is worth doing and it's working. And we've had lots of feedback from parents and young people who've said, because of your event, I am now doing this, or I'm now doing that, or thank you for hooking me up with this firm who's offered me an internship or a scholarship or access to this or that. That's why we do it.
No, thank you so much. Because yes, I think like when you mentioned, as a Nigerian myself, one of the things that my dad and my mum always say, and especially it's something that a lot of black cultures do, is the idea that, you know, anyone in your community is not, they're not, you know, my mum's friend, they're not my dad's friend, they're my uncle or my auntie. And as you said, it's seeing those individuals, whether they become professors, whether they become full-time entrepreneurs and created their own business, whether they are researchers or effective change makers in their own field. The only way you'll inspire another generation to do that is by having those conversations, one, but also seeing those people in those spaces. Because I think one of the things we mentioned in the previous episode is there's a tendency when you see all these celebrities doing all these amazing things.
Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you. More scheduling flexibility and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. So again, that's betterhelp.com/pickupthemic, MIC, and start your journey today.
We just coughed for a bit, but there's a tendency when you see all these celebrities doing all these things to sort of dissociate from it and say, oh, well, you know, I can't be that person because this person's, you know, they you know, everything lined up for them. But to actually be able to, as you said, meet people from these big firms, to know that there are people in these spaces and to learn from them and to hear their stories is what's so impactful.
Yeah, and you know, let me comment briefly about celebrity visibility and real achievement. We live in a time where social media and marketing per se is a real thing. And most of the celebrities that we see come out of the entertainment field, and they're there for that purpose. They're there to entertain us. But you know, imagine a world where everybody who's done anything worthwhile is an entertainer. Now, I make that starting point for this reason. So you've got a toothache and you need a dentist, but the only skilled person out there in your world of all entertainers are just entertainers. Would you go to your favorite comedian to sort out your tooth? Don't need an answer. Imagine your roof has just been blown off your house and the only skilled people out there are the entertainers. Would you go to your favorite comedian to try and fix your roof? Or something more everyday? Your car is broken down. Would you go to your favorite entertainer to try and fix that engine to get you back on the road? Or God forbid that you should need a heart operation. Which of your favorite entertainers or celebs would you go to try and fix your heart or do that replacement heart operation? So I think there is a grounding that we in our community, and I would say all communities, need to get across to our young people. See celebrity for what they are, essentially entertainers, people to make us laugh. But if you want the real work to be done in all the areas that matter, you need other skills. And if you forget that, then you'll live a cartoon life. Because when real problems arise, your entertainers are not going to be any good to you. Now, I'm not against entertainers, but they're part of the mix. They are not the whole story. And that's really why, for us, Reach Society matters. Because we're actually saying to our young people, be an entertainer if you want. But if you want to do something else which is meaningful and worthwhile, here's the long list of possibilities. And that's really what we're trying to do.
And even adding to what you were just saying, that a lot of these individuals that might specialise in one thing, they even know that, like you said, they're in the spotlight for only a certain period of time and have to gain other skills. So whether it's they were an athlete and then became a public speaker, or they were an athlete and went into business because that was what they studied when they were at university. They all have that trade to go back to, where, as you mentioned before, I think a lot of, especially for young people now, there's that sense of, oh, I see this person, they're 21 and they're very popular, or they're 21 and they've got these many followers on social media. But actually, some of these people, whether it was through they were born into the wealth, or they've actually figured, as you mentioned before with marketing, they figured out how to market themselves, that they can, even if they're just using their one media to promote themselves, they've already thought about business-wise, how can they work with certain organisations or certain groups, which a lot of young people don't see. So they'll just assume, oh, I have to do the same thing as this person, and I'll be given the same opportunities, or I'll get as rich or as famous. But actually, that's not the case. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, as you mentioned, that a lot of young people don't always think about.
Young people are wonderful. But the thing to remember about young people, to me, is that they're young. And they don't understand the world. And they don't understand the long term or even the cycle of life. And so once folks recognize that young people are young, those young people need to be connected to people who care about them, who can advise, guide, support, and hopefully prevent them from making too many horrible mistakes, some of which are terminal. They never recover from them. And so once we accept as adults that young people are young and they need to be guided and supported, then they'll get there. But if you think they're young people, they know it all and they don't need any guidance and support or whatever, look at how many of those young people crash and burn. The thing we cannot forget, well, I'm a father of 4. I love my 4 children. I was never minded to allow them to be abused by society who perhaps was only looking to exploit them. Yeah? As a parent, my job is not to set my children up to crash and burn. It was to give them an opportunity to have a long and meaningful and rewarding life. Yeah? I leave, though, every parent to decide what they want for their own children. Some people just want them to crash and burn. I wasn't one of those parents.
Yes. Well, no, thank you very much for that. And yes, I think it's that important lesson of remembering that my dad's got this quote where he says that the essentially where in life, whether it's to do with career, academics, where he stopped is the minimum that he wants us to get to, because he's saying that you will go further than I have, because I've give you all the experience and the knowledge that I've gained, and you will then build on that, and then you'll do the same for your children. You'll ensure that the minimum that you do, the maximum that you do is the minimum where your children will be expected to go. So encouraging that mindset of you're not, as a child, you're not limited to sort of where you see, whether it's your family or friends, that you can go essentially anywhere. You can go to new heights that maybe you've never happened in your family. You're the first one to go to university, first one to be a doctorate, first one to do a master's, and your children will even go even further than that. So yes, I think that's one of the most important things that my dad said.
I think your dad was very wise, because that's a useful starting point. The way I package it in our family is this:
every family needs to have adults in them that have a vision. And if you have a vision for your family, then good things happen for that family. And I give you the example of my own family. My parents, both of them have passed now, my parents were Jamaican. And my parents worked out, when I was very young, that Jamaica was an opportunity-poor country. They were clear about that. We were 6 children. My dad, through the Second World War, came to this country and saw the gap in wealth between Britain and Jamaica. Being part of the Commonwealth, being part of the empire, he wanted us to be in an opportunity-rich environment. We were entirely free to come to the UK, and that's why we came. So, the vision that my mum and dad had for us was to put us in a place where we would have access to more. I won't lie by saying it hasn't worked, because it has. 6 children, 5 with degrees, only 1 didn't have a degree, but she didn't have a year or a day when she was unemployed. It was my big sister. She was too old when she got here. So that vision took us to the UK. I embraced that vision. And actually, what I did for my 4 children was not to leave them to be abused in the state education system. And I'd say abused because even today, 2023, the state education system in the UK does not look at black children the same way they look at other children. So the chances of talented black children coming through the British state education system, realizing their potential, is still lower than for other children. My wife and I saw that because we were brought up here. So when we started having children, before my eldest was 2, we said, that's not going to work for our family, because our vision was to ensure that all of our children benefited from this opportunity-rich environment. What did we decide to do? We decided to abandon the state sector, and they all went independent. So imagine this scenario. We took that decision when he was 2, and we didn't know how many children we were going to have. So we started saving like crazy, because we knew the independent sector required fees, and we were not going to be able to afford the fees if we weren't saving towards those fees. So all 4 went to the independent sector. What a surprise! All of them had 8 to 10 GCSEs, all of them had great A levels, all of them went to top universities, all of them are doing very well paid jobs. What a surprise! So, my statement I made at the beginning is still hold true. Every family needs to have a vision. And if you deliver on that vision, your children will benefit, perhaps even your grandchildren will benefit. Because if you pass on that vision to your children, then they are the next generation of delivering it.
Appreciate. We've now come to the last official question before we go over to passing the mic, where I won't be physically passing the mic over to Dr. Neil, but he'll be asking me a question based on my experience and related to what we've been talking about today. But the last question is, I think you've touched on it, but I think we'd really love to know more, is what has been your favourite project to work on within the Reach Society? What has been a project that you cherish?
Yeah, that is such an interesting question. And I say it's an interesting question for these reasons, and I will answer your question. If you take Reach Society as a whole, that is a project. And I could say that is the most interesting project, the whole thing. Because not only am I one of the co-founders, I'm also the chairman, which means I have an obligation to ensure that the society is always moving in the right direction. That in itself is a project. But I'm going to actually come down from that big picture and share some other things with you. One of the projects I'm really proud of
is the fact that we have grown cohorts of role models, volunteer role models, in London. We have hundreds of them. We also have hundreds of them in the east of England. We also have scores of them in the West Midlands. We also have scores of them in the Northwest. And wherever we go with our inspiration event, we build up a cohort of volunteers. So I'm proud of the fact that Reach Society has now attracted a lot of men and women who willingly support our inspiration event. But that's not the only project we've done. We also roll out every month, with the exception of August and December, so 10 a year, monthly networking conversations. And my partner in crime, Donald Palmer, Professor Donald Palmer, he's an immunologist, he heads up that program. And without fail, every year since we've been going, we've rolled out 10 networking conversations where we use a particular topic to have a conversation, but we're creating the opportunity for professional men and women to get to know each other. Because we believe that where those professionals know each other, it makes it easier for them to work together and support our events. And so we will always have a project like that. And I'm incredibly proud of the work Donald has done. And so it's a project, it's close to my heart. There's another project that we wrote down, which is really, really good. And that's our representation project. And at the heart of that is the training of people who say, yes, I would like to help Reach Society to inspire young people. And we say to all of those folks, before you can do that, you need to be trained. And so since the organization has been going, we have trained dozens of people who want to be ambassadors. And I have to be proud of that, because when we started, there were lots of people, and I do mean people in the black community, who thought we were wasting our time. We couldn't get people to do what we wanted to do because we were just too selfish a community. Well, we didn't believe that. And so the mere fact that we've got so many people who volunteer, who are trained, and who help us with our outreach work, I'm really proud of that. But yes, my answer to your question is the collaboration that started in 2018 with Durham University. Now, for everyone who knows a little bit about universities in this country, they will know Durham is one of the oldest universities and one of the richest universities. And they came to the society in 2018, and they were honest, and we thank them for their honesty. They wanted more black talent to study in their university. They were not happy with the fact that the only black students, or mostly, were from overseas. Because they knew the talent was there, they just didn't know how to access them. Long story short, in 2018, we attracted the first 20 who actually experienced the summer program, applied to Durham, were offered places, went on to study there. We are now 5 years later, and it's now got a capacity of over 250, and those students started as year 12s in the summer school, were made offers, and they are now the next wave to go in as undergraduates. It's now up to capacity. I'm really proud of that for this reason. When I was head of recruitment for Europe, Middle East, Africa in Shell International Chemicals, when we met a Durham graduate, we would do everything in our power to offer them employment because we valued them so much. And to see that we now have a pipeline of British black students going into that august university, benefiting from that environment, and hopefully coming out with decent degrees, means that they will have extraordinary opportunities going forward. And yes, that perhaps pips everything else we've done. I'm particularly proud of that particular project.
Thank you, and it's a wonderful project to be sharing because, yes, it's very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. But yes, we've now come to passing the mic. I'll hand over to Dr. Neil to ask me the question he's got for me.
Jeffrey, there are lots of things I could ask you about what you're doing, but you're an extraordinary young man, and because of that, I think the right question to ask you is, what motivated you to start this wonderful project, Pick Up the Mic? Just talk to us about that.
So Pick Up the Mic started because at Brunel University, as many universities have, they have student-led elections where you can go for certain positions at university. So casting all the way back to 2021 October, I was going to be, I applied and was nominated to be the BME officer at my university. And this was during when we had the tier system, so we weren't able to campaign on campus. We had to do a lot of online campaigning and messaging in group chats and asking friends to share with friends and to put up posters in their accommodation. But for me, while I was doing the campaigning and a lot of my friends were, there were a lot of resources at Brunel specifically that students weren't aware of. So for example, whether it was our professional development centre that offers 3 years of, so while you're a student, they offer you advice on CVs, cover letters, whether you're looking for a placement or not, they can give you this advice. But they also provide it to students 3 years after they graduate, which a lot of students didn't actually know about. So there were some that were in their final year or who had just graduated, and they said, I had no idea that this was even something that I could offer and I could get for university for free. And I said, yes, this is something you get for free. There were students who didn't know that Brunel has an entrepreneur team that every year run a funding competition where students can win a set amount of funding. I think the maximum prize is £5,000 for their business idea. Even better, you don't have to come as a Brunel student or graduate with your concrete idea. They give workshops and you can have one-to-one sessions where you can gain all this support. And finally, personally, I wanted to work a lot more, with my campaign, to work a lot more with black-owned businesses, because I said that while it's great that we have all these placements with big names and there are some that have ties to university, it would be really nice for students to also see organisations where they're represented. I know through some of the placements that I did that there were networks within the organisations for black members of the organisation, but I know that a lot of the organisations that Brunel was working with weren't actually black-led businesses. So I said, this is an untapped area, this is something we should go for. Now, linking it to what we were saying about entrepreneurship and sort of learning from mistakes. So I didn't get the position. And I remember at the time I was a bit upset. My family was saying you shouldn't be upset, you've done incredible work. But it really stuck with me that all these students that were replying to messages and saying they didn't know about all these resources, I felt something needed to be done. Mm-hmm. So it came to, I think, in the new year, it's coming up to Christmas, and I spoke to my friends that helped me campaign, and I said, well, look, I think it would be really good if we do an online Zoom series where people can come and learn from people in industry, they can have these interesting discussions, and they can gain support and learn about resources that they don't know about. And I think it was coming up to, so we announced it was coming up to the date of the actual, the first session, and we didn't see a high engagement, but we felt that wasn't necessarily because the event itself wasn't very good. We felt that it was because at that time, even we spoke about it as a team ourselves, we said, oh, well, are you not tired of all our lectures being online and doing Zoom meetings almost every day? And we said, oh, well, a question we asked was, do you watch any lecture that you weren't able to attend? Do you go back and watch the recording? Or do you just look at the slides and just use that to help you with your studies? And we said, actually, yes, we miss that human interaction. And we said that, you know what, we're going to pause the event. We said, we're not going to do it as a speaker, as an online series anymore. But we said, podcasting is something we could try. None of us had podcasting experience. None of us had ever done something like this before. But we said we wanted to try it. So myself and my co-founders, Anushka and Samuel, we just, one evening, jumped on a Zoom call and said, okay, we're going to plan out this podcast and we're just going to record it. And yes, we recorded our first episode all on how to follow your passion in a difficult world. My co-founder, Samuel, led that discussion. And then it just started off with just us speaking to friends and family, inviting them on to speak. And then in our second series, Samuel again, who, as you'll see in our story, has a lot of inspiration for some of the things we do. He said, You know, it was really great that we did it on loads of listening platforms, and we spread the news about Pick Up the Mic. He said, let's try YouTube, let's try doing it as a video series, because he said audio is really great, but you know, a lot of young people, they're on YouTube, they're watching videos, and if it's something that's important and relevant to them, they will decide to watch it no matter how long it is, or no matter who's brought on. If it's a topic they're passionate about, they'll engage. So yeah, I'm happy to say now, sort of 2 years after that, and coming up to even 2 years since that initial idea came from, that we're now officially, we're now here. We've grown from just being one podcast to a series of podcasts, and now becoming a podcast network. But it's been a real pleasure to sort of to build up the team, but also to see the dream and where it's come, and all the awards and the funding we've applied for to receive, to know that essentially, I always say on the podcast that we're very passionate about just having the ethos of, as long as one person listens to this episode and it's impacted them, I find that very grateful. And linking to what we were talking about before, about this idea of social media, and if you don't get a lot of engagement, then somehow what you're saying or what you're doing isn't good enough. To know that there's one person, and they've either left a comment, or they've messaged me on LinkedIn, or they've told me personally that, oh, this is really useful, I didn't know this, or, oh, actually, this is amazing, I wish my university had this, has really been truly an amazing experience, and I'm always grateful for just that opportunity. So that's, I guess, to sum it up, looking back, was it not great? I was actually got the date wrong, it was October 2020, but looking back to almost 3 years ago, where that position didn't happen, and I was a bit upset. I now look back on that and I say that was probably one of the best things ever, because the amount of people I've spoken to, the amount of people I've interviewed, the amount of spaces I've been in because of Pick Up the Mic has been an experience that I'm truly grateful for. So
I think that in itself is inspirational, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Because what I heard you saying, you had an idea, you and a couple of friends, and you've proven the concept. And in proving the concept, you're seeing the impact. And so, although the door you thought was going to open for you didn't, you went on to create an open door of your own, and you've made a success of it. And that in itself is admirable. That's what entrepreneurs do all the time. So, big tick, consider yourself an entrepreneur, sir. And there will be lots of other great ideas that will come your way, and hopefully you prove them and you will make something of them.
Thank you so much. Yes, we've now come to the MC of the Month, which are organisations and individuals that are doing amazing work and relevant to the episode that we're talking about. And of course, it would be a shame if we didn't talk about the Reach Society. As I've mentioned, we've spoken about a lot of amazing work that they've done. We'll be including links to their website below, so if you are interested in attending any of their events, please do, and we'll be discussing that just before we end the episode as well. But yes, there's no better organisation to put for our MC of the Month than the Reach Society. They do incredible work, even being able to through my university, to be able to be at the Luton Employability Day, and to not only get to deliver workshops on STEM and to encourage young people to get into STEM, but also to meet other employers and to meet people that I could connect with and build my own network on LinkedIn, was truly impactful. So yes, our MCs of the month are the Reach Society. Please do check them out, because yes, you might find something interesting too.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey. Nice surprise. Nice surprise.
Before we end the episode, we have this segment, which we call the takeaway segment, which we won't be delivering any takeaway to anyone, but instead it's our one key message that we want our audience to go home with. So I'd just like to ask you, Dr. Neil, based on this whole discussion that we've had, what would be the one key message you would like our audience to take home with them?
There are so many things I could identify. But for me, the one that has been enduring and has made the biggest difference in my life, I would suggest that as the takeaway message. Do not be afraid of taking responsibility for your affairs. Do not be afraid, embrace it and control it
and move your life in the direction of your choosing. And I say that for this reason. My secondary school was a bit of a menagerie. The teachers didn't appear to care. The kids, certainly many of them, didn't care. But as someone who loved learning, I made sure I did all of the work that we were set, all of the homework, and even when we weren't being given the syllabus, I went and asked for it and worked in my own time to ensure that I covered the ground. That was how I passed my A-level physics. So taking responsibility for your affairs is such an important thing to do as early in your life as you can. And so when I went on to university, I saw lots of young people who, it was the first time they were away from home. Many of them went crazy, overdosed on alcohol, overdosed on drugs, overdosed on the freedom. I parted, but I never lost sight of why I was there. I was there to do the work because I couldn't face myself if I did not come out with my degree. As it turned out, I came out with 2 degrees because I got a PhD as well. So taking responsibility for your affairs is important. When I went into the world of work, certainly in the run-up to that, when I was applying for jobs, I did my research. I knew what area I wanted to go into. I prepared the ground. So although I went for 12 interviews and got 6 job offers, I was actually asking for the same thing. I want to get into business. I'm a scientist. I want you to tell me whether you're going to deliver on the promise in your blurb to train me to become a businessman. The ones who made me offers that I believed were the ones I shortlisted. And that's important. Taking responsibility for your affairs. Know what it is that you want to do and prepare yourself to go after it. In my time in Shell, it was wonderful. I saw the world and I didn't have to pay for it. However, I was also conscious that after 21 years, I'd outgrown Shell. I wanted something different. What did I want? I wanted my own business. So I left, I started my own business and made a lot of money. And then I retired. So that, in a nutshell, is me saying to all the listeners, from I was a boy, I was taking responsibility for the things that mattered, despite the chaos, despite the distractions. And that's such a powerful thing to know about yourself and be willing to deliver. So taking responsibility for your affairs is the take-home message I would give to all the listeners, all the viewers.
Oh, thank you so much.
Jeffrey, thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you, and it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. Before we wrap up, if our audience would love to connect with you, what is the best way or the Reach Society as well?
I was absolutely going to say that. info@reachsociety.com. It will get to myself and 2 other directors, and that's the easiest way. Dropping me a line, we always respond to people who contact us.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And thank you to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back for another episode. If you like this episode, like, comment, and subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next episode, then please click the notification bell at the bottom of the video. And if you're interested in supporting the podcast as well as receiving some perks, please check out our Patreon page. The link is in the description below. But we're going to close the chapter on the student guide today. It's been an amazing discussion, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode where we open a new chapter with the student guide. So that's a bye from us here, and have a wonderful day.